Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is and whatever part of the world you're at. Welcome back. And today we're going to do another lesson about the distance formula and the use and application of the midpoint formula. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump on in. Number 3 reads, line segment JK has endpoints J, -1, positive 10, and K, -5, positive 2. Line segment MN has endpoints M, +9, -7, and N, +1, -3. Is line segment JK congruent to line segment MN? Okay. So first thing I do want to point out is that this symbol right here, okay, that symbol, and in case you can't see it, that symbol, it looks like an equal sign with a squiggly line on top. It's a symbol for congruent. Okay. Now, congruent means equal to or same as. All right. So basically, they want to know, are the distance of each line, are they the same? Are they equal? Okay. So now that we understand what the question is asking us, let's go ahead and do our work. So for each one of these, we have to do x1, y1, x2, y2. And then I'm going to do mn in red. x1, y1, x2, y2. So we have to find the distance for each one. So let's do JK first, and then we'll do MN. So JK, distance is equal to, remember we're going to write it out, the formula, x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Okay. Then you do d equals square root. Now we're going to do -1 minus -5 squared. All right. Oops. Put a parentheses in there. Plus 10 minus 2, all of that squared. Now, remember that right here we have double negatives, so that really becomes -1 plus 5. And -1 plus 5 is 4. So this is going to become 4 squared plus 8 squared. Okay. 4 squared is 16. 8 squared is 64. And when you add those together, you get the square root of 80. Now, for the sake of answering this question, we don't necessarily have to simplify the square root of 80. It can be simplified. This answer right here can be simplified, but if we're just trying to answer it, are they congruent? We can just stick with this part of the answer. So let's go ahead and figure out what the distance is for MN. So once again, practice writing it. Okay. Remember, this is a formula that you need to memorize for geometry. When you take your standardized state test, this won't be given to you, so that's why we rewrite it each time to memorize it. All right. Now we already have our points labeled. We just need to plug them in. So x1 is 9, x2 is 1, so 9 minus 1 squared, and then y1 is -7 minus -3 because y2 is -3. Okay. Now remember, we have our double negative here, so that really becomes -7 plus 3. So we have d equals, this is going to become 8 squared plus -4 squared. 8 squared is 64. And -4 squared is +16. And when you add those, you get d is equal to the square root of 80. Now, once again, we found the distance for MN. So the distance for MN, the distance is the square root of 80. And the distance for JK is also the square root of 80. So, are they congruent? Yes. Answer is yes. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at number 4. Number 4 states, if y is the midpoint of xz, y is located at positive 3, negative 1, and z is located at at 11, comma, negative 5, find the coordinates of x. So, if you need to take time to reread it, go ahead and do that. But first thing I would do here is just draw out a simple little diagram. And it can be a straight line. Your endpoints are x and z. And our midpoint is y. They give us the midpoint, right? They say, hey, the midpoint is 3, comma, negative 1. And z, which is one of our endpoints, is 11, comma, negative 5. And they want us to find the other endpoint. They're like, hey, what's these coordinates right here? All right? So, we have to work backwards. We are gonna be working the midpoint formula backwards, right? So if we remind ourselves real quick, the midpoint formula says that, hey, if you add both of your x's and divide by 2, you'll end up with your midpoint for your x value, right? And I'm gonna just leave a space there. And if you do the same thing for your y values, you'll end up with that answer as well. Okay. Now, the midpoint, the answers that we're gonna be using here. Here's our x midpoint, and here's our y midpoint, right? So this would be 3. And this would be negative 1. Now, we don't have a x1 and a y1, but we do have a x2 and a y2. So if we plug those into our little formula here, just to keep everything. So we don't have a x1, but we do have a x2, which is 11. And all of that's going to equal 3. And then we have y1 plus our y2 is negative 5. All that divided by 2 would equal negative 1. Okay? Now, all we need to do from here is just solve these equations. And we'll be able to come up with our missing coordinates. Okay? So, once again, for this one, we would end up doing, the equations that we're really solving are x plus 11 divided by 2 equals 3. And then the other equation we're going to solve is y plus negative 5 divided by 2 equals negative 1. Okay? So I'm going to erase some of this so I have some room to work it out. And we're going to work those equations out. Okay. So we said x plus 11 divided by 2 equals positive 3. So if we're solving this, first thing we want to do, okay, is multiply both sides by 2. That gets rid of the 2 as the denominator, right? And we're left with x plus 11 equals 6. And then we subtract 11 from both sides. And that's going to give us x is equal to -5. So there's one of our coordinates, -5. Now we got to solve our other equation. Our other equation, we said we were going to do y plus -5, all that divided by 2 equals -1. So once again, first thing we're going to do is multiply both sides by 2. So what happens here, the 2's cancel out, and we're left with y plus -5 equals -2. Now, to get rid of that -5, we're going to need to add to both sides. So we're going to add 5 to both sides because the 5 is negative. And that leaves us with y equals +3. So the coordinates for x are -5 and +3. Okay. All right. And now let's go ahead and take a look at our last problem, number 5. Number 5 says if D is the midpoint of CE, CD is equal to 9x minus 7, and DE is equal to 3x plus 17. Find CE. So once again, a skill that you're going to need to get comfortable with in geometry is drawing and drawing diagrams. They don't have to be the prettiest. It needs to be somewhat accurate based on what the information they gave you. And then from there, once you have your visual, you label it and you should be able to figure out what you need to do. So it says C and E, right, are the endpoints, and D is the midpoint. They also tell us that CE, which is the entire thing, is 9. Oh, excuse me, not CE, but CD. So CD is just part of the diagram. So CD is from 9x minus 7, right? And let me put that on top because I want to have some room to work it out on the bottom underneath. So this would be 9x minus 7 right here. And then D to E is 3x plus 17, right? Now, it says find CE. They want us to find the whole thing from C to E. What is that? That's what they want to know. In order to do that, we have to figure out what x is equal to. Okay? Now, if D is the midpoint, if D, let's get another color here. They're saying D is the midpoint. So something that's halfway between two places cuts the entire segment in half. So for example, let's say if I had A, B, and C, and A was 8 and B was 8, then I wanted to find, if AB was 8 and BC was 8, if I wanted to find the whole thing, AC, I would just add them together and that would make 16, right? Now, the other point that I was trying to make is that when you cut something in half, okay, for example, if this whole thing is 20, right, from A to C is 20. If I cut it in half, this is 10 and this is 10. When you cut something in half, you make each half equal. Okay? So, with that being said, because we know that D is the midpoint, then we know that each one of these halves are equal to each other. So, we know that CD, right, segment CD is congruent or equal to segment DE. Now, that means that we can write this out. 9x minus 7 equals 13x plus 17. And let me erase some of this right here. I don't want this to be such a distraction. I'm going to just get this out of the way. All right. Now, all we need to do is go ahead and solve for x. So solving for x, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. That's going to give us 6x minus 7 equals 17. Okay. Then we're going to add 7 to both sides. All right. So when we add 7 to both sides, that's going to give us 6x equals 24. Divide both sides by 6. X is equal to 4. So now that I know that x is equal to 4, we're still not done. Now I just want to plug 4 in for x. Okay. So, and if both of these are equal, if 9x minus 7 is equal to 3x plus 17, we only need to plug 4 into one of them, and we'll automatically know the other side. So I'm going to do 9 times 4 minus 7. 9 times 4 is 36. 36 minus 7 is 29. So, and if I wanted to make sure I was correct, we could also do 3 times 4. Let's get 3 times 4 plus 17. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus 17 is 29. So we already see that both sides, both segments, both half segments are each 29. But the question is, what is CE equal to? CE is the whole thing. So we have to do 29 plus 29, which is 58. So CE is equal to 58. Okay. All right. Hopefully that helped some of you all out. That will conclude this video for today. Have a great day and see you back later.